Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your Hurricane Pro and HD video discussion for the 10th day of May 2017. Let's check on what's happening with Tropical Storm Adrian down here in the southeast Pacific to the south of Guatemala and El Salvador here, south and west of those areas, and south and southeast of Mexico. The 5-day forecast from the National Hurricane Center, right now it has 45-mile-per-hour winds. The forecast still calls for this to become a hurricane, but you can tell because of the circle here, it doesn't go on out in a cone any longer in any direction. It's just a big old circle because this is going to be a very slow-moving system, and the steering currents are weak. They're going to remain that way, and so this is going to be an interesting forecast challenge, perhaps, over the next several days. The good news with that, I think, obviously, is that it'll stay offshore. Even the cone of uncertainty here out at day 5, 120 hours out in time, remaining off the coast of Mexico, so that's good news. Maybe some additional rough seas down here as a result of the winds churning up the ocean there, but outside of that, at least over the next 5 days, the way it stands right now, no problems expected for land areas. Adrian itself is undergoing some problems, that's for sure. The system not as healthy as it looked yesterday when it was just on the verge of becoming a tropical depression. What we're seeing here on the visible satellite imagery, these low-level feeder bands trying to come in here, the center of circulation somewhere in this area, so it's kind of decoupled the mid-level center, the upper-level center, and the lower-level center for a tropical cyclone to really become efficient at transferring heat from the ocean and then squeezing it out of the atmosphere. It really needs to be vertically aligned. You can't have the centers where you have the low-level center here, the mid-level center displaced over here, and then the upper-level center, if it even exists, sheared off in this direction. Try to imagine this in 3 dimensions, and you get the idea. And we can see that even in this satellite animation here, looking straight down, roughly anyway, from satellites at 22,000 miles above the Earth's surface, that it's not very symmetrical overall, and again, that low-level circulation probably hiding over here instead of tucked underneath where everything is vertically stacked. And we can see that to some extent. Now, in this case, it's a little misleading. The vorticity signature, and I want to zoom in on this, even though it's nice and round down here in the vorticity signature, that's the low-level vorticity at about 5,000 feet. And as we saw on the satellite picture, I probably should have put maybe a 700 millibar chart as well to show you, but it would be hard because it would be 2 different graphics and I don't really have a way to stack them. But the 5,000 foot, or the low-level vorticity, is fairly vigorous, but the mid and upper-level centers, even if there is an upper-level center, is displaced probably like that a little bit. And so bottom line is Adrian is not very healthy right now as far as tropical cyclone intensity goes. And hey, it's, intensity forecasting is a very difficult part of the hurricane forecasting job, either by folks in the private sector, private weather companies, and of course certainly the National Hurricane Center. Sometimes you just have to go with what you have in front of you. Upper level winds probably a little bit stronger out of the south and southeast here, displacing that deep convection just enough away from the low-level center, as I've talked about here. So it's not ideally located underneath an area of anticyclonic flow aloft, and that's why we are seeing these problems with the system. Let me show you something else, too. This is interesting. You see this trough carved out here. Very strong upper-level winds coming across the Atlantic Basin right now. That's why, a part of the reason why, and I mean, those even extend all the way down here. Everything is blowing against the grain, so to speak. So if we were to have any tropical disturbances coming across, running into this headstrong, they would be sheared off. Any disturbances would be ripped to shreds. It's May. We're not supposed to have activity this early. I just thought I'd point that little interesting aspect out to you. The intensity forecast from the different models here, you get the model guidance envelope. And overall, I think if we just kind of look at this as a mean through here somewhere, yeah, steady intensification maybe, really coming down off of the hurricane forecast. Some of the models yesterday were more aggressive. Now they're a little bit more conservative and more of a flat rise over time. Let's just kind of outline it here. A majority of the models, these outliers here we won't worry about, and we really won't worry about. That's just kind of weird in and of itself. But you get the idea. It's a gradual slope, and it all seems to stay, for the most part, within the tropical storm parameter. See that right there? I love how this is done from the NCAR, National Center for Atmospheric Research. I think they're in Boulder, Colorado. So this is a great graphic produced by Jonathan Vai and some of his colleagues out there. And it really kind of shows you the different evolutionary patterns as these things move through their life cycles. And in this case, conversely to what we saw yesterday, not much strengthening is anticipated. But you never know. Tomorrow could be different again, right? The track guidance, this just updated just a little bit ago. And we have all these different model plots over here on the right. This is the legend, and they're all down here, what we call the spaghetti plot. Yesterday they were in fairly good agreement, a majority of them coming in with an envelope like this, an overall guidance package somewhat like this. Well, today it's different. Now we're starting to see some divergence in the models. There are a few that still hold on to that curve towards the northeast with time, maybe threatening southeast Mexico. And then you've got some that just kind of linger around in here, and then some that take it off in this direction, such as the GFS there. And yeah, so it's going to be an interesting few days. This may be around a while, or it may dissipate. You never know. I mean, tropical cyclones are not easy to predict sometimes, that's for sure. The GFS ensembles, this is kind of comical to me. You really get the idea here. There's 20 ensemble members, and it's just one big old mess. It looks like a big batch of garden snakes or whatever, little garter snakes, I think. Those tiny little harmless snakes that get in a big pile. Well, that's what this looks like. It's ridiculous. It's a mess, and the ensemble members of no help here whatsoever. But you know what? We can look at this and we can say, at least for the next few days, 3 to 5 days is a good time frame of comfort, that nobody along the Mexican or Central American coastline should have any direct impacts. Maybe a few rain bands could come on shore, and like I said, an agitated surf state because of the proximity of this to land, relatively speaking. But other than that, at least this mess here says, yeah, there's no threat to land for the time being. So good news there. I'll stay on top of it. Of course, you've got some great tools to track it in Hurricane Pro and HD, and I suggest you do that. And if you do have interest down in that region, stay on top of what's happening, and I will keep you posted with what I know over the next several days. Have a great rest of your Wednesday afternoon. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. That's my website. Check it out sometime if you haven't already. And hey, it's always great to post these videos for Hurricane Pro and HD. And with that being said, I'll wrap at you again tomorrow.